Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of season 2 of Coffee Chatter. Say that 10 times fast and see what happens. For today's local news segment, I decided I wanted to cover the very mysterious fire that we had here in Manchester. It started as an explosion on Mooresville Road over by Memorial High School and quickly became a double fatal fire. The innocent victims were a married elderly couple. The firefighters didn't think to look inside because they were allegedly on vacation but came home early and there was no car in the garage. Now it seems the son is missing with their car. What do you think happened? Is it simply a coincidence that their car is missing the son and their house blew up with? Or do you think the son killed his parents and left the state? Weigh in with your opinion in the comment section or on Facebook. For TV news, we have a few TV stuff to cover before we get to Dancing with the Stars. First, ABC has canceled a new drama. Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, not the regular Once Upon a Time, but Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, has been canceled. There is talk from ABC that some of the cast will move to the long-running Once Upon a Time, but did not divulge on who was making the switch. GMA host signs a long-term contract. Those who watch Good Morning America will not be saying goodbye to Laura Spencer for a long time. Spencer recently signed a long-running contract with the show, saying, "You know you're in the right field when getting up at 4 a.m. is a joy." Laura happens to be my favorite of the bunch, and I'd love to meet her someday, but doubt that'll happen. Now let's get to Dancing with the Stars. This week is my favorite week of every season of Dancing with the Stars because it's Personal Stories Week. Every dancer gets to choose a year that was most memorable to them, which, as you can imagine, can get things very misty. There was also a guest judge this week, GMA host Robin Roberts, which means all scores are now out of 40 instead of 30, giving dancers a chance to increase their scores, which all of them did this week. Billy D. Williams saved the crew from the hard job of eliminating somebody from the competition when he was told by his doctor to withdraw due to a back injury. So all of the stars that dance tonight will be back next week for the switch-up week. Julianne Hough is next week's guest judge. But let's get to tonight's emotional stories and wonderful scoring dances. Kicking off the night was James Maslov and PETA with a jive. James picked 2007 as his most memorable year because it was the year he finished high school and was no longer faced with being bullied every morning. The dance had a neat beginning with a classroom theme, and he had a great jive form. His score was a 36 out of 40. Next was Nene Leakes and Tony Dovolani with a romantic rumba. Her most memorable year was 2013 when she remarried her husband. For once, she actually danced a good, solid dance. She was 31. Next, Cody and Whitney had a jazz routine. His best year was 2010 when he was discovered via YouTube videos and signed to a record label, moving from Australia to the United States with his family. He danced to his own song, Surfboard. I didn't see a lot of jazz in the routine, but according to Bruno, jazz dances change from generation to generation. His score was 35, and that is my crazy boyfriend dancing in back of me. You never know what's going to happen on live TV. Next, Danica and Val came next with a beautiful contemporary routine with a double dedication. Her year was 2010, which was the year her grandmother passed and her son was born. It was a beautiful, fluid dance to Billy Joel's Lullaby Goodnight My Angel, which is one of my favorite songs. She also received the ever-popular 36 out of 40. Drew and Cheryl finished out the first half with a waltz dedicated to his son, born in 2005. He had a few missteps, but it was a beautiful waltz that went straight to the hearts of any parent. He had the lowest score of the night at 30. Next came our highest scoring couple, Meryl Davis and Max, with a celebratory foxtrot. Ever the creative thinker, instead of basing it on just one year, Meryl said her most memorable year was a 17-year journey to winning gold at this year's Olympics. It was an amazing dance with perfect fluid moves. Max and Meryl added a contemporary twist to the foxtrot and earned a nearly perfect 39. getting the first 10 of the season, 3 to be precise. Amy and Derek came next with, if I don't say so myself, the most emotional story of the night. She chose 1999, which was the year she contracted bacterial meningitis and nearly died. At the age of 19, she lost both of her legs, and her father had to donate one of his kidneys to keep her alive. So she dedicated this dance to her father for giving her life twice. Her dance was contemporary, and it was a really emotion-packed dance that actually worked. 36. Charlie White and Sharna had the jive. Charlie's year was 2010, the year he and Meryl won silver in the 2010 Olympics, which he says gave him
Hi, I'm Dustin. Hi, Susan. Hi, Skylar. Hi, everyone.
And live TV. The urge to do better for 2014, which produced them with the gold medal. It was a fun, energetic dance, but he lost his timing a few times and actually was ahead of the music, which he blames on being so excited. Also got a 36. Ending out the evening was Candace Cameron Bure and her partner Mark. It was a full house reunion of sorts when her TV mom and best friend Kimmy showed up unexpectedly during rehearsal. The whole cast was invited to come cheer her on, but the only two I saw...
Mom.
Sorry, I stand corrected. Aunt, not mom. That's right, he's right. I remember now.
She married her uncle.
Right. But the only two I saw were Kimmy and the TV aunt, whose name I believe was Lori Loughlin, the actress's name, that is. Her year was 1995, the year Full House ended its run, and a few weeks later she was engaged to be married to her current husband. They danced the jive to an Elvis song as a homage to Full House. It was a good dance with good rhythm, but her jive kicks were a little low. I do, however, like the fact that she is still staying modest with the clothing, even when the jive dresses are usually short or revealing. Her score was 32. The switch-up happens next week, and then week 5, whoever remains will return to their regular assigned partners. Next is our cold case section, which this week comes from Idaho. This week's cold case is from the state of Idaho. Hawaii had no cases listed online. And our person's name is Lynette Culver. Lynette Culver left Alameda Junior High School on her lunch break and was last seen boarding a bus at Hawthorne Junior High School. She was seen boarding the bus by the bus driver and several of her friends on the afternoon of May 6, 1975. She was never seen again. Lynette Culver is a confirmed victim of serial killer Ted Bundy. He admitted to her homicide right before he was executed in 1989. He made his claims to Robert Capel, Ph.D., one of the investigators of unsolved crimes believed to be connected to Bundy. Bundy claimed he abducted Culver and took her to a room at a motel where he raped her and drowned her in the bathtub. He said he dumped her body in a river. Bundy is a suspect in many disappearances of many other young women. The women continue to be listed as missing persons. Their remains have never been recovered. Anyway, TV show reviews of Haunted Collector is the first one that I reviewed. Haunted Collector is a very neat paranormal investigation show that focuses mainly on actual objects in the home or location of the hauntings. I did not see this as staged at all compared to other paranormal TV shows. The people involved are very nice and empathetic towards whatever case they are working on.
Got to feed the catfish.
And the show really is well put together. If you like paranormal shows, I suggest you check this one out. It's found on the Sci-Fi Channel, but also on Hulu. I'm not sure about Netflix, as I just now got it. So I'm not sure what's on there yet. My boyfriend will check on that, so I'll have an update as soon as I get information. Celebrity Paranormal Project is the other show that I watched. This show, as far as I know, is no longer on TV and only had one season successfully. However, it is quite interesting. The show basically is a team of 5 celebrities who may or may not have grown up believing in the paranormal, but signed on to explore an allegedly haunted location as a teen, without any help from paranormal experts. It's set up like a game, with one person reciting directions via the group radio. Each team is given a checklist to complete to determine what area of the place is the most spirited. With any celebrity-based reality series, it has its share of drama, where one celebrity thinks he or she is better than the rest and knows what to do, or decides to change the rules. There's also your typical scaredy cat that freaks out. It's a more laid-back version of your typical paranormal shows, a little lighter than the others. And I actually finished a book for once, The Christmas Wedding. The Christmas Wedding is by James Patterson. Many know him for his famous crime or mystery novel, but lately he has teamed up with different authors to expand his subject matter to different genres. In this case, he chose romance. He still includes mystery, though, as the mystery is that Gabby is getting married on Christmas Day, but nobody but her knows who she will marry, not even the groom. Everyone else finds out on Christmas Day, even the groom. She sends a video to all of her children inviting them to come together for Christmas for the first time since the death of their father, Peter. Each chapter has a section dedicated to each of the children, who are each going through their own troubles of adulthood. Overall, it was a great change from his typical crime novels, and it was really good. I literally had no idea who she was going to pick until the very end when the wedding happened. In Reflection Corner, our first reading is from Ezekiel chapter 47, verses 1 through 9 and 12. I hope you don't have to pee, because this one talks about water all the time. Then he brought me back to the entrance of the temple, and I saw water flowing out from beneath the threshold of the temple toward the east, for the facade of the temple was toward the east. The water flowed down from the southern side of the temple, south of the altar. He led me outside by the north gate and around to the outer gate facing the east, where I saw water trickling from the southern side. Then, when he had walked off to the east with a measuring cord in his hand, he measured off 1,000 cubits, and he had me wade through the water, which was ankle deep. He measured off another 1,000, and once more had me wade through the water, which was now knee deep. Again he measured off 1,000, and had me wade. Their water was up to my waist. Once more he measured off 1,000, but there was now a river through which I could not wade. For the water had risen so high, it had become a river that could not be crossed except by swimming. He asked me, "Have you seen this, Son of Man?" Then he brought me to the bank of the river, where he had me sit. Along the bank of the river I saw very many trees on both sides. He said to me, "This water flows into the eastern district down upon the Arabah, and empties into the sea, the salt waters, which it makes fresh. Wherever the river flows, every sort of living creature that can multiply shall lie, and there shall be abundant fish. For wherever this water comes, the sea shall be made fresh. Along both banks of the river, fruit trees of every kind shall grow. Their leaves shall not fade, nor their fruit fail. Every month they shall bear fresh fruit, for they shall be watered by the flow from the sanctuary. Their fruit shall serve for food, and their leaves for medicine." Our responsorial psalm this week is Psalm 46, verses 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 9. Again, has to do with water. You shall draw water joyfully from the springs of salvation. God is our refuge and our strength, an ever-present help in distress. Thus we do not fear, though earth be shaken and mountains quake to the depths of the sea. You shall draw water joyfully from the springs of salvation. Streams of the river glide in the city of God, the holy dwelling of the Most High. God is in its midst, it shall not be shaken. God will help it at the break of day. You shall draw water joyfully from the springs of salvation. The Lord of hosts is with us, our stronghold is the God of Jacob. Come and see the works of the Lord, who has done fearsome deeds on earth. You shall draw water joyfully from the springs of salvation. And our gospel message is John 5, verses 1 through 16. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem at the Sheep a pool called in Hebrew Bethesda, with 5 porticos. In these lay a large number of ill, blind, lame, and crippled. One man was there who had been ill for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had been ill for a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. While I am on my way, someone else gets down there before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your mat and walk." Immediately the man became well, took his mat and walked. Now that day was a Sabbath. So the Jews said to the man who was cured, "It is the Sabbath, and it is not lawful for you to carry your mat." He answered them, "The man who made me well told me to take up your mat and walk." They asked him, "Who is the man who told you, 'Take up your mat and walk'?" The man who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had slipped away, since there was a crowd there. After this, Jesus found him in the temple area and said to him, "Look, you are well. Do not sin any more, so that nothing worse may happen to you." The man winced and told the Jews that Jesus was the one who had made him well. Therefore, the Jews began to persecute Jesus because he did this on a Sabbath. The one message that kept jumping into my mind while reading today's readings was healing. Especially in the Gospel, we see Jesus healing a man who has been sick for a long time. The healed man, who is joyful that he's healed, goes to share with his friends, who instead start to persecute Jesus for healing on a Sabbath day. Times have obviously changed, and now healing takes place any day of the week, at any time, really in any place, by the many doctors and nurse practitioners, paramedics and firefighters. But let's not forget the ultimate healer, which is Jesus. He can heal any time of the day or night if we just go joyfully to the waters of salvation and let him heal us. It may not be an instant healing or a healing in a way we expected, but he will heal what needs to be healed. During the remaining weeks of Lent, allow time each morning and before bed each night for Jesus to come into your soul and heal whatever areas need healing, whether they be physical, emotional, mental, or even spiritual healing. He heals all and will heal even the worst sinner if they would just leave that door to their heart open for him to enter. We have 2 saints today. The first is Saint Mary of Egypt. Mary is the patroness of penitent women, speaking of healing, and was born in Egypt. Mary lived sometime in the 5th century. Her life was first recorded in about the 6th century, and various writers have offered differing accounts. According to one legend, Mary was a beautiful singer who left the world she knew so she would not tempt men into improper relations. She fled to the desert beyond the Jordan River. There, after her clothes turned to shreds, her hair grew so long that it covered her naked body. She died in the desert, and 2 monks buried her there. Another story offers a richer description of Mary's life. In this version, she is said to have been the daughter of a wealthy Egyptian family who left home when she was 12. In Alexandria, she became a prostitute, and she continued her trade while accompanying Christian pilgrims to Jerusalem. Upon reaching the Holy Land, Mary set off with just 3 loaves of bread and remained alone in the desert for 50 years. A priest named Zosmas finally came upon her, and Mary walked on the water of the Jordan River to greet him and take Holy Communion. Mary instructed Zosmas to return the next year with communion bread. The priest followed her orders, but when he found Mary, she was dead. Mary's story became popular in Europe during medieval times, and scenes from her life often appear in paintings and on stained glass windows. The details of how or why Mary entered into a life of prostitution are unknown, but today most prostitutes are desperate for money. For children, the situation is even sadder, as they are exploited by adults and forced into this squalid trade. In 1990, a group of charity workers and private citizens came up with ways to deal with child prostitution flourishing in Asia. They formed End Child Prostitution and Asian Tourism, or ECPAT, then changed their name to End Child Prostitution, Pornography, and Trafficking, after broadening their focus to include children around the world. In 1996, ECPAT co-sponsored the first World Conference on Child Sexual Exploitation and Child Pornography. Along with increasing public awareness, CPAT's efforts include training counselors who work with victims of sexual abuse and advising governments on the issues of child sexual exploitation. ECPAT's work is a reminder to us that society must do more to protect its most vulnerable members. Our last saint for the day is Saint Hugh of Grenoble. Hugh was the Bishop of Grenoble and was born in France. Hugh was born to nobility near Valence. Over the years, his mother instilled in him the value of prayer and of helping others. A brilliant young man, he attended some of the finest schools. After he finished his education, he was appointed canon at the Cathedral of Valence. In 1080, Hugh attended a synod at Avignon. The delegates needed someone to reform the troubled diocese of Grenoble. Impressed by Hugh's talents, they asked him to be bishop. He accepted reluctantly and was ordained. But when he arrived in Grenoble, Hugh was alarmed by the immoral behavior he found. Priests were living with women. Influential laymen had seized church property, and the people knew little about their religion. Hugh immediately dedicated himself to reform. Although Hugh was successful in his work, he became discouraged at times. At one point, he was so unsure of himself that he left to become a Benedictine monk, but the Pope ordered him to return. Serving as Bishop of Grenoble for 52 years, Hugh preached eloquently. Personally, he heard confessions, built hospitals and houses for reformed clergy, and continued to give generously to the poor, inspiring the wealthy to do the same. In 1084, after Hugh's former teacher Bruno founded the Carthusians and was searching for a home for his order, Hugh offered him some land nearby. Whenever he could, Hugh spent many hours in prayer at the monastery. A humble man who had answered God's call, Hugh died at the age of 79, surrounded by the monks with whom he felt most at home. Hugh dedicated his life to reforming those who had gone astray. Reaching out to people who need guidance remains just as important today. Since 1991, Project Brotherhood Society in Vancouver, Canada has helped troubled teens come in off the streets and use their time productively to aid the needy in their own community abroad. Teens in the program take part in various community efforts, including building homes for needy families, distributing necessities such as clothes, basic hygiene items, medical equipment, and school supplies, sponsoring and volunteering at summer camps for inner-city and challenged children, and delivering food and emergency relief to the needy. Project Brotherhood has found that by helping others, its involved teens increase their self-esteem and learn leadership skills that offer them hope for a future. Pray for these teens and for all young people throughout the world. And our closing prayer is inspired by Saint Hugh of Grenoble. O gracious God, we pray for your holy church universal, that you would be pleased to fill it with all truth in all peace. Where it is corrupt, purify it. Where it is in error, direct it. Where in anything it is amiss, reform it. Where it is right, establish it. Where it is in want, provide for it. Where it is divided, reunite it. For the sake of him who died and rose again, and ever lies to make intercession for us, Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord. Amen. Our fan of the week this week is Jason Smith, who quickly answered this week's question. The answer was Krista McCullough, a great woman and educator that died way too soon. She's actually buried in one of the cemeteries I have to explore and will be featured in my book. Next week's question will be posted on Wednesday, and I will see you next week.